Someone just said something to you that hit a nerve, and your heart is pounding, your face feels hot, and every cell in your body is screaming at you to respond, to defend yourself, to put them in their place. You know deep down that staying silent is the powerful move. You have read about this. You have heard the quotes about not giving people the reaction they want, but knowing that, and actually being able to do it in the moment, feels like two completely different worlds. Because right now silence does not feel like power. It feels like a struggle. It feels like you are forcing down a scream and calling it peace, and that gap between knowing what to do and actually being able to do. It is exactly what we are going to close today, because the Stoics discovered something almost 2,000 years ago that turns silence from a forced effort into something that feels completely natural. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly how to make that shift. If you have ever walked away from a confrontation feeling like you lost even though you said nothing, then you need to watch this until the end, because we are about to talk about something called the Inner Citadel. And once you understand it, you will never look at disrespect the same way again. So if this resonates with you, hit subscribe right now, because what comes next could change how you handle every difficult person in your life. Let's start with a question. Why does an insult hurt so much? Why can one sentence from someone ruin your entire day? Make you replay it over and over in your mind? Even hours later, the answer is something the Stoic philosophers understood with frightening clarity. It is not the words themselves that hurt you, it is your judgment about those words. An insult is just air, it is vibration, it is sound waves that disappear the moment they are spoken. It has no physical form, it cannot touch you, it cannot harm your body, it cannot take anything from you unless you give it permission to. And that permission is given inside your mind in the form of a reaction. This is where we need to talk about two very different types of people. And I want you to be honest with yourself about which one describes you most of the time. The first type lives with what we will call the fragile ego. The fragile ego is like a house with paper-thin walls. Every sound from outside gets in, every insult, every disrespectful comment, every dismissive look from another person passes straight through these walls and lands directly on the identity. Inside, when someone with a fragile ego is criticized, they do not just hear the criticism, they feel it as a direct attack on who they are as a person. Their heart rate spikes, their thoughts spiral, they start preparing a defense before the other person has even finished speaking. And even after the conversation ends, the words keep echoing inside those paper-thin walls, replaying over and over. Because the walls were never strong enough to keep them out in the first place, the fragile ego experiences every disrespectful comment as a crisis, a threat to survival, even though nothing about their actual life has changed. The second type lives inside what the Stoics called the Inner Citadel, and this is not just a mindset, this is an actual architecture of the mind. Picture a fortress with walls so thick and so solid that sound from outside simply cannot penetrate them. When someone with a fortress mind is insulted, the words arrive at the outer walls, and they simply stop there. They do not get inside, because there is nothing inside that responds to that frequency. The person hears the words clearly, they are not ignoring reality, but the words do not trigger an internal alarm, because the fortress mind has already decided in advance that another person's opinion cannot enter and shape what is happening on the inside. This is not suppression. This is not pretending it does not hurt. This is something deeper. The words genuinely have less power because the internal structure they would normally attack simply is not vulnerable in that way anymore. Here is the most important distinction in this entire video. The fragile ego believes that silence means weakness, that not responding means the other person won, while the fortress mind understands something completely different. When you do not react, you are not losing the exchange, you are revealing that the exchange never had access to you in the first place. Now let's talk about why this happens at a deeper level, because understanding the mechanism is what makes this practical and not just philosophical. When someone disrespects you and you feel that surge of anger or hurt, what is actually happening is your mind is treating their opinion as if it is a fact about reality, as if their words have the power to define who you are. But here is the truth: their words are simply data about them. They reveal their character, their mood, their level of self-control, their own insecurities. They reveal almost nothing about you. An insult is essentially someone showing you a mirror of their own inner world, and reacting to it as if it is a verdict about your worth is like getting angry at a weather report, because inner citadel work begins with separating these two things completely. What they said belongs to them, how you feel about it belongs to you. And the moment you stop merging those two things, the insult starts to lose its grip. This is also where the idea of the gap becomes so important. There is a space between the moment someone says something disrespectful and the moment you respond. For most people, this gap is almost instant. The words come in, and the reaction fires out almost simultaneously like a reflex. But the fortress mind treats this gap as sacred space. Inside that gap you have a choice. You can choose to let the words pass through you like wind passing through an open window, or you can choose to grab onto them and let them take root. The goal is not to eliminate the gap. The goal is to become aware of it, because awareness of the gap is what gives you back your power. So how do you actually build this inner citadel? Because right now it might sound like a nice idea, but you are wondering, how do I actually do this in the moment when my heart is racing? The first practice is what we can call the labeling technique. The next time someone says something disrespectful, instead of immediately feeling the emotion, try to mentally label what is happening. You might say to yourself internally, this is an opinion, or this is their anger speaking, or this is just noise. This small act of labeling creates distance between you and the reaction. It activates the observing part of your mind instead of the reacting part. And that observing part is exactly where the fortress mind lives. The second practice is called premeditation of insults. The Stoics used to mentally rehearse difficult situations before they happened. They would imagine someone being rude to them and imagine themselves staying completely calm. This might sound strange, but your brain does not fully distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and real ones. When you mentally rehearse staying calm during disrespect, you are literally training the neural pathway you want to use later. So before a difficult conversation or a difficult person in your life, take 60 seconds and imagine them saying something hurtful, and imagine yourself simply observing it without reacting. The third practice is the physical anchor. When your heart starts racing, your body is already reacting before your mind catches up. So instead of trying to control your thoughts, first control your breath. Take one slow, deep breath through your nose, hold it for a moment, and release it slowly. This single breath interrupts the automatic stress response and gives your thinking mind enough time to step back into the driver's seat. The fourth practice is the question of cost. Before responding, ask yourself one simple question. If I respond right now, what does it cost me? And what does it cost them? In almost every situation involving disrespect, responding costs you your peace, your energy, your composure. While it often costs the other person nothing, this question alone can be enough to choose silence, not as suppression, but as a calculated decision. Here is what I want you to really sit with. The goal is not to become numb. The goal is not to pretend you are a robot with no feelings. The goal is to build an inner world so solid, so well constructed, that other people's words simply do not have the architecture to break through anymore. When you reach that point, silence stops being something you force. It becomes something that happens naturally, because there is simply nothing inside you reacting to defend. The next time someone disrespects you, notice the moment your heart starts to race. And instead of seeing that as a sign that you need to respond, see it as a sign that you are standing at the gates of your own inner citadel, and you get to choose whether to open them. If this video gave you a new way to see disrespect and silence, make sure you subscribe, because next time we are going deeper into how to deal with people who try to provoke you on purpose, and how to recognize manipulation before it even starts.